May Jesus be praised, and onward with Mary. Good and holy day to all of you, dear children, in the sacred hearts of Jesus and Mary, and in the most chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Welcome back to our morning segment 1.0, Saints and Coffee. Today is Wednesday, the 26th of March. We are in the third week of Lent, practically halfway through the journey towards the evocative and extraordinary rites of Holy Week. All of us priests should put our hearts into celebrating. I don't know, sometimes I see certain priests celebrating. I don't judge their inner dimension, but with a carelessness and emptiness. But already, even before Bergoglio, seeing certain priests as they celebrate the rites of the week, without any enthusiasm regarding everything that is called liturgical choreography. John Paul II also wrote this in his autobiography, saying that what also drove him to enter the seminary was the dramaturgy of Holy Week. Lived well, there is no more incense, there are no more sumptuous robes, sacred furnishings as God commands. Many times these rites have become stale, repetitive, and monotonous, and then people don't come anymore. Instead, I can't wait to celebrate, God willing. The rites of Holy Week, because first of all, it is for me. Then we come out tired. I think of Palm Sunday. Then I think of Holy Thursday. I think of Good Friday, the Easter Vigil, Easter Sunday. In reality, then it is a regeneration for everyone. So we are halfway through. Then with the rosary in hand, looking at Jesus on the cross. We advance in these days of Lent, in view. Then we are never halfway. Quite close also to the 2 weeks of Passion. Yesterday was Tuesday, the 25th of March, the Solemnity of the Annunciation. We experienced a beautiful afternoon of prayer and fraternity of the small remnant in Umbria, in Terni. These are the images for a total of about 130 people. The hall, as was expected in terms of numbers, indeed filled up. This was what we had anticipated, more or less. Experience in this regard helps us. And it was truly a moment of grace that was prolonged. Then in the evening, there were families yesterday. Of course, it was a weekday. I clearly remember that it was a weekday, a working Tuesday. So those who are employees obviously could not be present, but the hall filled up on a weekday. I was saying that then in the evening there was an edition with the catechesis of the Johannine Tuesday from my book, The Eagle, the Sun. We commented on the call, the first part of the call of the first disciples, and we stopped the whole evening. Then returning to the hotel, I thought about the disciple whose name is unknown. The first and Adrian, the second disciple called by Jesus, has no name. And so we did a whole reflection on the theme of the disciple called love, because there is no discipleship that is not marked by love. Here we go. Well then, this is a bit of what happened to us yesterday. Naturally, you can recover the catechesis. If you want, from the playlist of Radio Domina Nostra, there it is, the post. You can retrieve it and listen to it if you wish. The book is available by calling the office of Radio Domina Nostra. This evening instead, today, which is Wednesday, there is the catechesis that starts with Celestino on the 10 Commandments at 9 o'clock in the evening on the YouTube channel of Radio Domina Nostra. Thank you. Here is the post. It looks like Moses. I don't know who prepared this post. Between Celestino with the tablets of the law, it looks like Moses. Every misunderstanding is resolved, dear ones. Truly incredible, this post, and whoever prepared it. Moses with the tablets of the law. Charlton Heston, the actor, Charlton Heston, who then somewhat resembles in profile, almost looks like Sean Connery. Brother Celestino, is your brotoid doing? Very well. Here then this evening, why don't we put it back? Here it is. Look at that wonder. Let's have some fun. There it is, the tablets of the law, and Moses holding them as he descends from Mount Sinai. And that is Brother Celestino, just to avoid any confusion. Also, because Moses didn't wear glasses. Anyway, this evening at 9 o'clock, there is this cycle of catechesis that accompanies the one started by Father Enrico Bernasconi on the magisterium, on the family, and the one by Father Ramon on the liturgy, at 9 o'clock on the YouTube channel of Radio Domina Nostra. Today is Wednesday, so slowly, this wandering of mine through Italy and Eastern and Western Europe is coming to an end because we have been to Romania. In these 3 months, then going to Andalusia in Spain, it is gradually coming to an end. There are 4 meetings left in total. Next Saturday, the 29th of March, which falls on the Saturday of the 3rd week of Lent, will be in Abruzzo in Teramo at the esteemed Hotel Hermitage, enjoying Silvi, a charming seaside town nearby. This is the appointment. What awaits us? Saturday the 29th in Teramo. Sunday the next day we will be in Naples, imagine that. From one side to the other. We can do it though. These are the last meetings, please. Don't let the Neapolitans miss this event and its surroundings, also to exchange Easter greetings. I saw that the meetings, including yesterday's one, which is a bit more provincial, outside the motorway circuits, on a weekday, and you get 130 people with various families, children, young people. It's an important thing. The message was received, that is also give us Easter greetings, I hope also in Teramo and Naples. And then, the final 2 meetings, which have been eagerly anticipated, are scheduled to take place on the Saturday of the inaugural Passion Week in the beautiful city of Bari, where the event is set precisely on Saturday, the 5th of April. On Saturday, the 5th of April, we will be in Bari, at the Hotel Majesty, where we always go, on Giovanni Gentile Street, on Saturday, the 5th of April, and Sunday, the 6th of April, at Mezzia Terme, with a supplement. In the coming week in Catania, naturally, the last stop remains. Catania, Eastern Sicily, deserves it. There are many faithful of the small remnant, perhaps more than in Western Sicily, perhaps more than in the area between Catania and Messina rather than between Palermo and the rest. This is a bit my feeling. My dear ones, that's all. Please support the work if you can. It is sorely needed. We are advancing the need to begin the work in Trebasaleghe, which is the chapel of the small Tabor of Christ the King. But we need concrete help, because I cannot start a job if I do not know how to complete it. And then also in Little Nazareth, naturally, as you know, at the Ave Maria Center, I'm starting to talk about it again because I'm getting ready to return. We made sure to take shelter, following the rules, since in Sicily it's so important to respect them. The rules, it's so right. Just think, they give us trouble. We place it on how we set up the gazebo, and then to the right, but also to the left, we have pharaonic villas, all illegal. But it doesn't matter. This is the world. I like that it says afterwards, the law is the same for everyone. Probably not true. Probably not true. Oh, it's true. If judges, magistrates are found, and there are, thank God, I can also speak from my personal experience, who are scrupulous and respect the law. Thank God there are, thank God, well, my dear ones. So this is a bit, the project appeared and disappeared, the whole of PayPal, so that people, dear director, do not even have the time to understand what we were talking about. Here it is. This is the first IBAN. The second you see is the postal current account. The third, the Pope. Here are the ways in which you can, if you wish, support the project we are carrying forward. Well, my dear ones, so today I had to choose exactly what to talk about. Today, I won't be able to pray the rosary with you because I am traveling, but I plan to do so in the coming days. Anyway, even if we do not pray it together, each of you pray the entire chaplet, the Holy Rosary, because the recitation of the Hail Marys keeps us in communion with God. It is a breath of heaven that reaches us. No one truly collapses and gives up if they have the Hail Mary on their lips and in their heart. Here I was telling you. All right, now maybe we can move on to today's topic. Yes, the title of today's session, as you will now see, which will appear immediately in the background, is the truth about, in quotes, little nuns. Because I have called them that from the first time, affectionately, and a bit, someone asked, but why little nuns and not nuns? Because, call them what you want. I call them little nuns because from the first time I called them that, and in fact I put it in quotes, because there's always controversy about everything when it comes to Don Minutella, the 𝐸'N𝐼𝐼𝐼. They ignore that a church exists, the gospel of Christ, while a false pope builds the church of Satan. However, on closer inspection, they note that Don Minutella's blunders are significant. The truth about the little nuns. Someone called me a rascal today on Marian Rebirth. Scoundrel, sorry. I wanted to read it to you, because when I speak, I know what I'm saying. I truly feel the tension steadily rising, ascending all the way to the stars. But why? Why the 𝐸'N𝐼𝐼, all of them, realize that I was right. It is being fulfilled to the letter. What I had said, let's see if I can find it, because maybe not, probably not. At the moment, just bear with me, I'll try to see. Yes, I found it. So the comment goes like this: silence him. Ivan Placido is the guy's name. See you in court with this one. See you in court. Silence this scoundrel. That would be me. Well, they try to write to this fellow that one doesn't speak like that, and that he must justify himself anyway. And he insists, dear sister, he writes to someone, hating and mocking an old and sick man like the Holy Father Francis is mocking Christ. In every man who suffers in this world, there is Christ. And this is enough for me to define your dear Mr. Minutella as a scoundrel. As Mr. Minutella would have the taste to say, indeed, that would indicate everything. Imitate then Jesus and the Madonna, as if it is not written that they seize their hours. What do? The money, that I enjoy life, that I am proud, narcissistic, narcotic, narcissistic egotist. No, they even wrote that I drug myself. You don't know that. You do not know this. The first years I was giving catechesis. In the evening I was so lively. They wrote from Malta. Someone wrote, check him well. The authorities should verify, because he surely takes drugs. I've seen it all. So imitating Jesus the Madonna and making you believe that he communicates with them makes him, be careful, well, thank you Jesus, makes him a disgusting, unworthy being. This is the level of tension. We have reached a point where we feel compelled to shout the truth. I am a scoundrel, a disgusting and unworthy being, without counting all the hatred he spits at me. So the one who shouts the truth, he who calls me disgusting, unworthy, tells me that I have spat hatred towards the Pope. Meanwhile, shouting the truth is never spitting hatred. If anything, it is denouncing the lies and falsehoods that your beloved dear Pope Francis has committed. Pray for him, as Father Bennu said, so that his soul may be saved. The cardinals will be complicit in his eternal loss, and all of you who follow Bergoglio, let it echo within you. This is told to you by this disgusting and unworthy being. See you in hell. Safe journey, dears. Ivan Placido, I give you time to retract these offenses and defamations because we are in Lent, after which we will see each other in court. Here, my dear ones, this is to tell you the tension. However, one of the themes of the borders on which the enemies work across the board to delegitimize 𝐸𝐻𝐻 is the theme of the border of the nuns, of the consecrated ones, that is, of young and also less young. I will never say the exact number because I don't want to say it. There are more than 10, a dozen, let's say, who have decided to embrace the charisma of 𝐸𝐻𝐻. They are part of a shared prayer journey with the charisma of 𝐸𝐻𝐻. Naturally, the mainstream should apologize now, because if there is one of these who spontaneously bears witness to the truth, if the newspapers were honest, I'm talking about the press, I'm talking about Il Messaggero, I'm talking about Radio 4, I'm talking about Rai 2, I'm talking about Rai 1, I'm talking about Le Iene on Italia 1. So we're talking about nothing. We're talking about very popular television programs, which should rectify. They should say that it is not right. In a state of law, in full respect of the rights that every honest Italian citizen enjoys, we must apologize. We need to correct. We should try to write an article in which there is this sister Arianna. Don't you want to call her sister? Because for you we are outside the church of this Miss Arianna Manino, who has made her statements. So let's acknowledge it and know nothing. Nothing indeed, the enemies get angry. When someone writes you're disgusting and unworthy, it's only because Arianna has intervened. Because you see, he has crucified his enemies, because they are the ones who are lying about the fact that I kidnapped them, etc. Certainly, it is a strenuous path, difficult to stay. Next to 𝐸𝐻𝐻, there are the departures. I don't need to discuss leak quality. One woman arrived with her seminarian boyfriend, and she wanted to be a nun. I like how they parade as mystics everywhere. I won't name names, those in the know do. And thank God I called him to witness. Then the seminarians and the little nuns in front of the two young lovers who wanted to be St. Francis and St. Clare, saying that this thing here is not possible. Now they go around, they belong, maybe they even return to the masses in union with Pope Francis. Then there's that other one who comes, who's never satisfied with anything, who has problems with her own inner difficulties and leaves. And so naturally, the journey is never right. The defectors, it's obvious that they always blame those who are there, surpassing everyone. The Venetian mystic, who had come, Point Nazareth, to Little Nazareth, with the battered car and a terrifyingly large cat like this, to ask to join the nuns. But it's not like one just picks up and comes with their own car. Where are you from? But who are you? Today is Wednesday, the 26th of March, the third week of Lent, nearly halfway to Holy Week. We priests must celebrate with passion. Yet I sometimes see colleagues celebrating carelessly, even before Bergoglio. Well, I am not a disgusting, unworthy person, such a one. I feel sorry for him having to answer to God, but a bit stupid. You see, because the nuns told me, Father, do not let him in. So she disqualifies the path. It's not that an outcast comes here, but we don't know from where. Then we actually discovered that she is in big trouble with her family, this woman. Moreover, also advanced in age and with big problems, was sleeping in her car. Then the pilgrims would come. And do you know what she would say to the pilgrims? They don't let me eat, they don't let me drink. Look, that's the devil sending these people to delegitimize the work. I always remember I sometimes recount the testimony of von Balthasar, who formed with Adrian von Speyer, a religious community, an institute of consecrated life, and the secular community of St. John. And for a long time, no vocations arrived. Finally, 3 arrived who wanted to join the community. Adrian von Speyer, who was a mystic, was enthusiastic. Von Balthasar, who was letting them in, said, "Thank you, do not let them in, because I had a dream, a vision, in which I saw 3 ravens coming to devour the doves." Those 3 entered at the behest of von Balths and caused leaks, seriously risking compromising the work. Because then those who leave bear a grudge. It's obvious they bear a grudge. However, these little sisters, who have been there from the very beginning over the years, among them the psychologist Dr. Manino. Dr. Manino is a psychologist with a degree. If I understood correctly, it's a kind of second degree. Anyway, she has 2 degrees. Dr. Manino, psychologist, is part of the company of Mary, and has decided, thanks especially to the interest of the 𝐸MO channel, to intervene. All right, I now have to say, I feel a bit of annoyance towards Dr. Menino because she has surpassed me with numbers. It had never happened before. The daughter surpasses her father. And anyway, now we just have to listen to the interview and intervene from time to time. Please. We are at home, Betania, in Savigliano, in the province of Cuneo, with Sister Arianna of the Company of Mary. Hail Mary! Sisters Arianna, tell us about your Company of Mary and your charism. Okay, so the Company of Mary was established way back in break time 2008, a truly remarkable period when Father Alessandro was still serving at San Giovanni Bosco. 3 devoted sisters felt the profound call to consecrated life. They felt in their hearts that it had to be a community founded by Father Alessandro, and without knowing each other, they went to Father Alessandro to ask him what he thought of this initiative. The incredible thing is that indeed they did not speak to each other beforehand. They asked indeed the Father, meanwhile personal discernment if indeed it was a real calling from God or not. In fact, these sisters have also had experiences in other religious communities. Afterwards they said to the Father, you know, Father, it would be very nice if you were our founder, if we created a religious community. Initially, the Father was extremely critical because he knew he would likely face various difficulties. Tuesday, 25th March, Annunciation, Prayer in Terni. The Father earnestly asked God for a sign because the situation was truly pressing, and he then implored break time point for the Lord for a sign. The sign was one of our sisters who was suffering from stage 4 cancer. This sister was in the world, although her presence was anything but ordinary. She was in the hospital, receiving care despite the gravity of her illness, and sadly, she had to die because she had only just arrived and was very, very unwell. All the people in his department had died, so much so that Father Alessandro gave him the last rites. Then he asked God for a sign. He said, you pray, you who ask me to form this religious community, pray to the Madonna. If this sister is saved, it means that is the sign that the community must be born. The sisters prayed, and they opened the Bible, and the phrase from the Gospel came out. This sickness is not unto death, but for life. Actually, this sister, who had never before expressed the intention to join the community, was only 19 years old. Then she recovered. She eventually recovered from the tumor, emerging as the sole survivor from her ward. And then subsequently she asked the Father, you know, Father, I would like to be part of this reality that you are creating. And when she entered, the sisters who preceded her said to her, do you know who you are? The sign that the community was meant to be born, that the community is desired by the Madonna. And from there began a journey filled with much suffering, yet also full of grace. Because after all, we are Catholics, and we know that every grace is obtained through suffering. And it was a journey, but a beautiful one, a beautiful journey, because there were contrasts between those who loved us very much and those who wished us ill. And we also tried to obtain ecclesiastical approvals. I remember, for example, when I entered the community subsequently, 4 years later, that we asked Bishop Lorefice if we could have a meeting with him to get to know each other, to show him who we are. And he did not want to receive us. So we, who were willing to go to any lengths, decided to do something to express our point of view concerning the hierarchy. Let's say it would have approved our community, but without the founder. So he was saying, yes, indeed. Okay, you can create a community, but not with Don Minutella. So let's say that the crucial point of everything has always been him. Because the father throughout his life has always encountered difficulties and experienced a great deal of envy. Arianna, or Sister Arianna, or Dr. Menino, however you wish to call her, lays the foundations on this path. And she tells the truth. She tells the truth about the matter, about the sign of our little sister who was near death. I entered the intensive care unit, all of course protected to give the last rites, Sister Robertina. She didn't understand that probably then, at that moment, or maybe she did, that she was about to leave. I told her father that instead he left first, that I would come in to give her the last rites, the viaticum for eternal life, but then she recovered. However, above all, what Sister Arianna says is true, that at a certain point this reality took shape. When the vocations come to you, you have nothing to say. The convents are empty, and I already had a handful of young women who wanted to dedicate themselves to God. And so begins the way of the cross, not for them, first of all, but for myself, because immediately the hierarchy says no. Divine permission, divine permission. I forced these nuns. It's all documented. It's all documented, shameful. Detractors of the work, you will answer to God, because here is the sacrifice of these souls. It's all documented. I forced these nuns to leave. Find yourselves ever a priest, a founder, a priest, who has done what I have done, who is torn in the soul, because you do not know what I went through before these 8 years. And so I sent one to the Poor Clares, one to the Dominicans, who knows, one to another religious institute. However, they left for these convents, these monasteries, because they had to become nuns elsewhere. Because with me it was not possible. Imagine the humiliation I was subjected to. When I told them, dear daughters, Father, but we follow your charisma. And if I cannot do it, well, I could find, God put me on the path, a holy friar named Humble, Friar Humble, who lived in Petinio in the convent with Friar Celestine, and I would go to see him so that he could help me. Friar Humble did an immense work because he realized that the work came from God and did not understand this hostility from the bishops, the one from Monreale and the one from Palermo. And so he sent me to Bishop D, who acted diplomatically out of respect for Brother Humble, but treated me like an idiot, to put it bluntly. At the end of the day, we didn't talk about the reason why I went. Between Humble struggled to believe it. And when, on the other hand, Brother Humble had the courage, because men of God, even when they are meek and humble, are nevertheless always courageous. They have the attributes. That is holiness. Please, holiness is that one. When the humble one saw this poor one, Christ crucified, who didn't know what to do, because in the meantime more daughters were arriving, I didn't know where to put them, so I wanted to take them to the parish. And immediately the vicar called the cardinal. They conducted an inquiry, an investigation, those sorts of things. I said to these daughters, you see, my daughters, I would like to help you, but they won't allow me. I can't. And so it was. Involved on my part, imagine the martyrdom of myself, a friar, Friar Francesco Rizzi of Medjugorje, who somehow was willing to take them upon himself. Fra Umila was absolutely adamant, no, this must not be done. We must fight, I intervene. And then Brother Humble realized what the bishops and the curie were capable of doing, making a letter disappear, with which I was asked what I wanted to do. I wrote that letter there. The Diocese of Monreale made it disappear because it nailed them in front of a charisma, which, if it exists, you verify it first, you don't condemn it in advance. That mystic who followed me since I was little, whom I've spoken about sometimes, if you remember, Pia told me, she used to say, prepare yourself because you are on the blacklist since the seminary of the ecclesiastical Freemasonry. From Palermo, they will start to persecute you for your entire life. Holy Week, from Palm Sunday to Easter, renewed by the cross through Lent and Passion. From the fruits, it is said, it's true, I couldn't do anything. I wasn't supposed to teach at the university. They did everything so that I wouldn't teach theology. They then tried to stifle the request from the Dean of the Faculty of Theology at the Gregorian, who wanted me as an assistant at the Gregorian. And the cardinal said no, because I was on the blacklist. And so God allowed them to try to sink me, and I always appeared somewhere else. Sister Arianna reconstructs this story and emphasizes, with such a delicate style, in this sense there is nothing of my charisma, that Don Minutella experienced the struggle of the beginning of a work. I, for example, when I met Father Alessandro at the San Giovanni Bosco parish, I remember that the church was full of faithful, so full, in fact, that there was no room. There were events of grace, the Eucharistic adoration on Thursday evening. For example, you saw so many people, young ones, even elderly, entire families who came to the parish to adore the Blessed Sacrament. And the people couldn't fit in the church, they reached outside. But a silence was created, a contemplation that gave you that spiritual life that made you move forward and truly live the gospel. In the end, Father Alessandro did this. He is so attractive in his charisma because he lives the gospel first and foremost himself. And so he gives you the example of how to live the Christian life. I distinctly remember that he was alone in the parish. That is, the father was asking for help, he was asking for priests, and the curia was not sending them to him. She was not happy about this movement of people coming not only from Palermo, but also from the surrounding towns, from San Martino delle Scale, from Villabate. They were coming from really faraway places. Because they felt this fervor that this holy priest had. And so they were attracted by the preaching. They were also attracted by these people. It seemed almost like a small local Medjugorje. And indeed, Father Alessandro took a lot from the Gospel. He truly lived those messages which were profound and led to prayer. In the end, this is what the Father does: lead to Jesus, lead to Eucharistic adoration. I also remember another thing that truly impressed me at the beginning of my journey, which were the confessions he made during Lent. He himself would call some priest friends to the parish, and there were about 5 priests who would position themselves in different places in the church. And people from all over Palermo would come there. John Paul II's memoirs, Holy Week drove him to seminary, but they spent loads of hours. We're talking about 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours of confession. Of all these priests and the souls who came, they came to confess, they came to receive the grace of God. I remember this event because one of my first encounters with the Father was a confession made at the parish of St. John Bosco at midnight. It was one of the last ones, and I remember I had come out. I said, "Mum, I felt like seeing a bit," because people were really outside the parishes, the parish, crowding the church. It was indeed a moment of grace when the Father was thrown out of the parish in such a violent manner. The local people were very affected by it, as were the shopkeepers, because the Father had brought something there as well. Everything went dark. A great light passed there, and people recognize it. Break time 1 point, they recognize it. Many enemies insist that Father Alessandro has brainwashed us. Father Alessandro enslaves us. Father Alessandro takes away our freedom. Quite trivial things of this kind. In reality, we were the ones, let's say, spiritual daughters, who insisted on creating this reality. Father Alessandro often told us, "Go home. It's not a road that leads anywhere." And yet we felt in our hearts that it was the finger of God. Well, one day Orefis had just been elected as the Bishop of Palermo, and we wanted to make ourselves known. So we went to ask for an appointment, and they told us there wasn't one. Well, I said, "But I don't know if it's really not there. Sisters, let's go there. We will stay there until we receive it." We stayed for 1 week, from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, under the bishop's residence waiting for lorifits. Finally, after a week of staying there, eating there, we didn't move from there because we knew something was wrong. Because as soon as someone said, I belong to the parish of St. John Bosco, or I am a spiritual daughter of Father Alessandro, it was like a chill descended. We were finally there, after a week of being there, through rain and sun. We were there. He received us, gave us an appointment. The secretary was stunned, almost shocked by our presence. So tenacious, but in a negative way, because he said, what do these people want? He received us. We talked, we told him who we are, we told him about our experience. And at a certain point he stood up and he said, you are outside the church, and dismissed us like that. And he left. And there we understood that there was a special mission from the Father, because we are witnesses of priestly authenticity, charisma, and honesty, also human honesty, because there is a dark veil, a mysterious, shadowy mantle that is slowly and inevitably being cast over this priest. And we are witnesses instead that it is not so. That is, there is nothing dark, it is all light, it is grace. Because he is a Marian priest, and Marian priests are generally priests who truly serve the Lord. Just to understand better, when they told you were out of the church, was Father Alessandro the parish priest? Yes, he was the parish priest of San Giovanni Bosco, but since they wanted to separate us from him, you can create a community, but without Father Alessandro, without Don Minutella. And we said, but it doesn't make sense for Don Minutella not to be there, because the charisma is his. So how do we create a community without the founder? Whom do we follow? The sheep follow the shepherd. Thus, the reason was clearly a deep-seated resentment among priests. So, before all the events that later set everything in motion, a subtle hint was made, but could you provide a little more detail? Perhaps you might even consider taking a moment to elaborate, and perhaps share precisely when your vocation first emerged. And if there was a particular moment when you said, I want to consecrate, here there is a passage, as you see, after a broad reflection on the origins of the Company of Mary, where it remains enigmatic. The reason that had no explanation, neither written nor oral, for which I could not and should not have been the founder of this reality. These nuns were indeed good, kind, and beautiful, but not with Don Minutella. And all this even before the battle against Bergoglio's false church began. Evidently, they already sensed the individual, because the Freemasons in the church have their Gestapo everywhere, and therefore this work was not to continue. Now instead, we move on to the account of Sister Arianna's personal calling. Let's listen. To dedicate my life to the Lord. What were the reactions of your family members? When I heard the call, I was in Rome. Let's say it was a journey, not a fall from a horse like St. Paul. It was a journey, a path. I attended the San Giovanni Bosco parish because I was engaged to a boy and his mother was a sentinel and still is a sentinel. So I attended the parish mainly to do a favor for his mom. I was beginning to be interested in this path, to become curious. I was still in high school. I remember that Father Alessandro saw the two of us engaged and said to us, "But you, who are you? Why are you here?" He told me, "No, but you know, Father, we came here because of the insistence of this mother who asked us to come. But we know nothing about faith. Can you receive us, and can we ask you some questions?" He said, "Of course." And every Thursday, we went to the parish. No, I just wanted to interrupt and say plot twist. In that case, it wasn't the daughter, it was the kidnapped mother. Come on, Someone from the big Italian dailies should investigate this now. Plot twist, it was not the daughters who were kidnapped, but the mothers. Let's move on. The parish full of people, truly full of people. I saw that people were waiting for an appointment with Father Alessandro from 2 in the afternoon. They were there from 2 in the afternoon, behind the parish, waiting for him to arrive so they could be received. And I remember that he, with so much patience, would receive us and answer our questions. Holy Day, children of Jesus, Mary and St. Jude. I went with the Bible in hand, but there are things written in the Bible that I do not understand. And he, with the holy patience that truly only a saintly priest could have, explained the things that we did not understand to us. Then let's say it was a journey of ever deeper understanding. When I understood the calling was when I saw the community, the first sisters. They were so beautifully radiant and so wonderfully joyful that I felt their prayer was extraordinarily powerful, drawing me in immensely. Then one day I went to Rome with this boy and I wanted to go to Mass. There wasn't yet all this talk about the false church, true church, and he stopped me from going to Mass. This thing hurt me a lot, because I understood that I have to choose between you and God, and I decided to follow the Lord. But I can say that nevertheless the calling, the further I go on this path, the more beautiful it becomes. I truly realize just how wonderfully exciting it is to serve the Lord, because indeed a decade ago, I was not the person I am now. One understands certain things, and then one grasps aspects of spiritual life that enrich you. And so the further I progress on this path, the more I realize the immense grace I have been given. The call of the Lord to have answered the call, because the call is not a self-nomination. I wasn't the one to say, I present myself, I want to become a nun. Also because if you are not called, you cannot endure. But indeed, it is the voice of God within you that says, leave everything and follow me. It is the most beautiful thing I have done in my life. Serving the Lord is serving Him. How? Bringing souls to Jesus. This is what a nun does, what a consecrated woman does. Bringing souls to Jesus. And that is what we also do here in Savigliano. Bringing souls to Eucharistic adoration, leading them to prayer, teaching them gradually. What are the dogmas of faith? Because it is precisely the ABC of faith. And I realize that this thing is gradually taking off. Yesterday I was in Palermo, today I am here, but I am certain that the Lord with us will do great works, great things, but only if we allow Him, if we let God act in our lives, because it's not us, it is not our strength that will lead us in the world to spread the truth, but it is despair. This is naturally only one of the voices. Others could speak if they wanted to, and everything would be greatly enriched. You see that there is a serious person with a spiritual depth that emerges completely. Naturally, I, before doing this broadcast, flogged her to blood and subjected her to a prolonged fast of 20 days. Without letting her eat, I kept her in prison. We have a prison. Come on, which newspaper is willing to investigate further? We have a prison where I keep these women prisoners. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed of the evil. In fact, it's good emo to title. Enough defamation of the defamation. Leave me alone, because I know that I had to live, but it is not right what you have written about these women. You self-proclaimed champions of rights, of women, and of equal opportunities should simply be disgusted by what you have been able to concoct in falsehood. And then Sister Arianna significantly alludes to the theme of the true calling. This happens to us, and this is because for us it's a scandal. It happens everywhere. In any case, a religious community, and even more so a seminary, foresee a period of trial. Why? Must everyone who leaves badmouth their old place? There the devil's work shows. Don't you like that path? Don't you agree? That's enough. Make your own way. There's no need to ally, to organize. And what I would like to emphasize even more is that Arianna says two important, profound things. The first is that one cannot endure if there is no calling. It is exactly like that. Both in the seminary, where they are more secluded than the women, and in the community of the Company of Mary. If you are not called, sooner or later you leave, because otherwise you are not happy. And the other thing that Sister Arianna says is that now they are here in Savigliano, in the province of Cuneo, where Casa Betania is, and a couple of sisters are there stationed. Someone else will prepare over time to go elsewhere. We hope more of the secluded ones will arrive. I will go around with the net in the coming days. Let's see when I stop at some service station. If there's some 20-year-old with the net, I'll pull it away and put it inside the van. Because we will need more calls, and I feel they will come. Because God cares about this project. It's the tree that bears fruit. Here, Sister Arianna says, maybe you haven't felt us completely. She said, I was in Palermo yesterday. Now I'm in Saviano. Maybe we are also about to say, maybe I will go to... And he wanted to say it. In my opinion, he did well not to say it. But just a few more minutes. Then, of course, the rest of the interview you've already followed, many of you, because it reached, with my enormous envy in a single day, I have never achieved these numbers in 8 years. It reached 20,000, more than 20,000 views in a single day. Poor me. I'm just kidding. Someone might really believe it. Which father does not rejoice in his daughters, his sons? I am a father, as St. Philip Neri used to say, you call father, I feel love. Let's try to follow a few more steps. We offer ourselves to God. Virgin Mary works within us. We simply say our Here I Am, and we say it with faith and enthusiasm, because if that is missing, the wine becomes bad. And by the grace of God, we have met these priests, because now there is also the fellowship, who give us good wine. They give us the example of how to truly follow the Lord in truth. The truth also involves life choices. And so it is truly an ever more beautiful journey. I started this journey when I was still in high school, then I graduated for the first time, and then the second degree. I obtained it when I was already in the community. And so I would like to sincerely emphasize that the devoted sisters of the revered Company of Mary are by no means mere simpletons or silly women who follow the priest. So, indeed, we are women of various ages who have made a serious life choice. The sentences, dear editors of the big newspapers, should scourge your conscience if you still have one. If you still had a conscience that you haven't completely liquefied, the words of the doctor, twice Dr. Menino, should lash you. Have you heard, well, what you shamefully managed to write, like with elegant Sister Arianna? She allows herself to say that you are mistaken, that you were wrong to slander them, that you wrote falsehoods saying they are sequestered, that they do not see their parents, that they live poorly, that they are persecuted, that I do not give them space, that I segregate them. You should simply feel ashamed of what you have been capable of concocting. However, the devil, of whom you are servants, makes the pots, but forgets the lids. This interview was enough, arriving at the moment God has established. Who knows why now? It must mean something. Sister Arianna, evidently speaking on behalf of the others, wanted to clarify, we are serious women, goodness me, these big newspapers that write about femicide. We must take action. Let's take to the streets in support of women, the patriarchal society, patriarchy, the macho man, and all those things. And then they have, with shame, with unprecedented shame, crucified a couple of dignified women who courageously decided to follow a charisma, living it, as Sister Arianna just said, with joy. They should apologize. You should apologize. You won't do it, because you are not worthy of having a conscience. Because if you had one, tomorrow, with this interview, the newspapers should say, those who spoke badly of these nuns, of the Company of Mary, segregated, etc., should say that we were wrong, against the fact we were wrong. Because here, holy peace in a state of law, there is one of them who is saying how things are. If one of them says it, it means that we were wrong. And it is not right to attach this label to Mr. Minutella. At least, this is not right. Here, the fact that they do not do it should make one reflect on the demonic exploitation of this public defamation. There are sisters who are older in age, who are even 60 years old, younger sisters, but all united by a single voice, a single charisma, which is precisely encapsulated in a phrase, Advenia terreni un tu, a Lord through Mary, which is our fourth vow. May Jesus reach souls through Mary. This means bringing souls to prayer, bringing the rosary to souls, to people. His family members? My family members? Well, I have two wonderful parents. In fact, I get emotional. I have a particularly special mother. All right, my family. This will be cut, though, because I don't want to get emotional. Well, my family had certain expectations. They thought I would have a promising career as a psychologist and as a skilled psychotherapist. And I thought so too. I had break time many initiatives. Welcome back to our morning show, Saints and Coffee. I realized, with regret, that I was never destined to be what they always envisaged for me. They were shocked at first, almost overwhelmed, but soon saw me as calm and composed. Then anyway, I am already 30 years old, 31 years old, so they know that it is a path marked by public defamation, and that this has spanned over 3 years. Yes, I interrupt again to express my gratitude to these parents, who unfortunately, in this awkward and bizarre situation, have no voice. This is serious. It only took a mother who lost, she says, 2 daughters. I'm talking about the Lebanese mother, Mrs. Giselle, that's her name, who has 2 daughters she brought herself. There are witnesses. In the Company of Mary, that is, she wanted them to know that reality, and the 2 daughters embraced it. It only took one mother, you see, going around defaming me, saying that I stole her daughters, kidnapped them, and keep them as slaves. Therefore, naturally, Judas Iscariot sold our Lord for 30 coins, and Mrs. Giselle did the same, going around knowing she was telling lies. But on the other hand, it's a borderline rumor, so why not listen to these other parents instead? They are, if nothing else, respectful in the choice of their daughters. They are not just sitting there, there's no committee, you know? There is no parents' committee against Dominatella. It doesn't exist. There is a mother who is not happy, and at most there might be someone else who isn't, as is the nature of things. St. Clare, when you want to play with St. Francis, the whole family went against her. And was there the Republic, the Messenger, the press, or Rite 4 conducting the investigation? Why don't they leave us in peace? Why don't you leave us alone once and for all? I'll tell you why you don't. Why Dominatella is our little one, and why Satan does not want all this. Just a little more. However, they see me as calm and assured. And so, even if they do not fully comprehend, a priest such as Father Alessandro could possibly endure all of this adversity, they recognize that I am someone with a clear head. Hence they allow me the freedom to act. I care deeply about freedom, precisely because it is through freedom and from a person's genuine free choice that one can truly embrace responsibilities. If I am free to choose, I take responsibility for what I do. And so it happened. In our lives, in the lives of every single sister. Seeing priests perform rites with no zeal for liturgical choreography. Freedom and responsibility, dear slanderous detractors who will answer to God. We are talking about mature women, adults, most of whom are graduates, with a personality, as you see in the case of Sister Arianna, well composed, well structured, with clear ideas. Why ever insist on that narrative there? Rites stagnate, people leave. I can't wait to celebrate, God willing. Let's finish with the last steps and then we'll conclude. Today there will be no phone calls, of course. Let's see if another piece, how many minutes? Let's go on, how many minutes are there? Yesterday, Tuesday, 25th March, Annunciation, we prayed with the small remnant in Terni, Umbria. What is Casa Betania and what activities do you carry out? So, Betania House is a branch. Here, I would suggest to the direction to skip this segment about Casa Betania, because it is just a detail, and instead give the direction time to move a bit further on the other topics being addressed. Let the direction inform me when the contribution is ready to proceed. The question evidently was related, as you know, to this other reality that was born small, yet quite significant. I must say that I did not expect this answer. In Piedmont, so beautiful every day, the sisters who are there hold moments of prayer, lead the rosary. So in Apostolate of the Rosary, Sister Arianna said it, why is this company of Mary a Marian reality? And so they have in view the Eucharistic adoration, a practice that is both reparative and one that is inherently imploring, for they earnestly implore the mercy of God for sinners, for the Church, and then they spread the Holy Rosary. And so there at Casa Betania, when the priests are not present, we carry on and manage to keep going. Now let's go to minute 27, where we talk about the choice to follow Don Minutella after the excommunication. Actually, there are two. I invite the direction, perhaps even the channel. I recall they issued 2 excommunications at once, a grotesque act unheard of in 2,000 years. Let's move on. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who selflessly devoted her life to the Lord in a truly heartfelt and committed service, right down to the very last penny. Your writings give me strength and great help. And then other saints, yes, we also have this rare opportunity to engage in personal adoration and thus deepen our connection by enriching our soul with spiritual reading. One must take in order to be able to give, so we have an hour dedicated specifically to spiritual reading of texts. Catholics of holy mystics like Saint Veronica Giuliani. But it also depends a great deal on a personal preference. You see, there are sisters who are undoubtedly more devoted to certain saints rather than others. However, in the end, the common goal remains always Jesus. So you knew Don Alessandro when he was a parish priest. You were mentioning it when Don Minutella shouted from the rooftops that Francis was not the true pope. You too found yourself at a crossroads and decided to follow Don Alessandro's path. Tell us a bit about how you experienced this transition and the reason for your choice. All right, good question. So the path that Father Alessandro took along a challenging route towards this false church turned out to be a very painful journey. Because initially he was not aware of what he was doing. Bergoglio. In fact, many said, not many, some said, Father, look, be careful because it is not what it seems. And the father would jump up and say, the Pope is untouchable because after all the upbringing is Catholic. So when Amoris Laetitia was released, that's when the first suspicions about this enigmatic figure began. Then it was truly a journey of an ever-deepening and more profound understanding of brainbending, of heresy and apostasy. So let's say that one must be Catholic to understand that this is a false church. Understood together, you see, Sister Arianna tells you understood together that you go to Mass in union with Pope Francis, you see. Sister Arianna says it, you need to be Catholic to understand that this is a false church. It's a logical equation made by a doctor. Within the field of psychology, you must be Catholic to understand that this is a false church. Remember this phrase, then we'll put it on Sister Arianna's grave. You must be Catholic to understand that this is a false church. Don't you understand? Either you don't understand it, or you don't want to. If you either cannot or choose not to understand it, you're not Catholic. You are not only no longer Catholics, but also hypocrites and false with your consciences. One must be Catholic to understand that this is a false church. Full stop, let's move on. They have a sentimental journey. It is a theological journey. In fact, we are truly astonished at just how few priests seem to fully grasp this profound truth, because quite frankly, one only requires the very basic ABC of theology. To understand that Bergoglio is a heretic, first and foremost an apostate, and then all the conspiracy theories surrounding his life. Here, perhaps this is the most brutal passage, the sweet, kind, dignified Sister Arianna. Here she really doesn't hold back. She took you all for ignorant, and rightly so. One needs the ABC of theology to understand, just the ABC of theology. Obviously, I think she also meant the catechism, because not everyone has a degree in theology, Sister Arianna. Not everyone has a degree in theology, but the catechism, yes, to understand that Bergoglio is not the Pope, and that he is driving a church that is not that of Jesus Christ, a church that has gone beyond the gospel. Well done, Sister Arianna is right. You are ignorant, if not outright accomplices. The story, the mafia of San Gallo, therefore the story of Father Alessandro, has always been accompanied by suffering, because by denouncing the truth he faced consequences, and quite significant ones, as is evident to everyone. When Father Alessandro was unexpectedly thrown out of the parish, Bishop Lorefus promptly organized a prayer meeting that brought together all the dioceses of Palermo in the cathedral for the unity of the church, ergo against Father Alessandro. This is one of the greatest pains I remember, one of the greatest defamations, because, however you put it, telling the truth resulted in significant social isolation. The media's relentless persecution, which you can see, is still so fierce today. There are truly many episodes, starting with this one, that have marked our journey. For example, I remember a call from my mother who said to me, "Where are you?" "I am in Sinisi." "Why?" "Because here on television they are talking about you running away with Father Alessandro." For example. So anyway, I would have liked to let you hear live the laughter of those who are here. But anyway, did you know I tried to escape with Sister Arianna? It's a shame the parents only found out on the telly. We missed our plane and are off to our Colombian villa. This thing truly brought disrepute and cast a lingering shadow over all. A dark film slowly descended, so we met people who remarked on the nuns of Minutla. They clearly believed that we were nothing but foolish and brainwashed individuals, people who simply did not use their own minds. And so we found that we had to undertake some additional work with the people, almost akin to a re-education, because it became apparent that they were almost afraid. I remember, for example, a long time ago, they didn't want to rent a house because we belonged to this path. Anyway, we have suffered a truly fierce defamation, one that remains painfully active and continues to this day. Here one feels the pain. I'm sorry to say it for all the unfortunate enemies. Here one feels the pain. I think you perceive it, the pain of Sister Arianna. She becomes the bearer of all her sisters, the pain of being labeled as followers of a guru, treated as out of their minds, as brainwashed. The Lord has asked these little sisters of ours for a significant contribution. They are like Veronica's accompanying Don Minutella on the way to Calvary, as he carries the cross to save. Not the church, because the church does not need saving, but to save the Catholic faith, because a church without faith is a... You slut, let's move on with this video. This testimony also serves to say that it's false. It's false. I also remember, for example, when the journalists came to Little Nazareth, they came and introduced themselves, asking us for an interview. And we said, look, we would prefer not to, but our naivety anyway, because we are simple people. On the other hand, there is malice. While we were saying, no, look, it's better not to. Maybe on this side, says Sister Arianna, we seek contact, dialogue, confrontation, says Sister Arianna. On the other side, there is malice. She is absolutely right. They must experience this on their own skin. However, women do not retreat when they are more motivated than men in these things, and they do not retreat, but they have experienced the malice. The possibility of an interview is not that I told Sister Arianna they should ask you for interviews after these things. Here, first agree on the questions, the issues to be addressed. The interview is not coerced. You don't go to these sisters' homes to harass them and make them fall to the ground because an ambulance has to arrive. In a state of law, it is agreed, stop disturbing these sacred women who have every right and freedom of shared responsibility to follow the path they want. Let's finish because there are about 7 minutes left, then we follow them and say goodbye. If you want to make an appointment with a priest, that would be even better. They recorded everything and then broadcast it all without our consent. This is also very bad. Having to go on television without us wanting this. Because in the end we decided to take this path. Not to become famous, but it was truly the last of our thoughts. We did not think that the harassment would be so fierce, and we wanted to live a simple life, the life that all consecrated people lead, a life of prayer, a life hidden in God, and instead almost, let's say, forced to have to say, look, they are speaking falsely. It's not like that. We are here to testify that we are free to have chosen this path, that no one has ever forced us to do anything, that no one has ever enslaved us, because in 2025 in Italy, let's say it would really be a paradox that we are also a good number, because 13 women deciding to follow a path means there is something different from what the media say. You sisters have a special relationship with the adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. Who is Jesus to you and his real presence? Jesus is bridegroom. He is the spouse of my soul, of the souls of my sisters, and therefore we live for him. Eucharistic adoration is a profound way of serving him, a calling that deepens our faith. Through sincere prayer, we ask him to save souls and seek his compassion, not only for salvation, but as a plea for mercy, hoping that our devoted priests bearing their burdens will finally overcome paralysis. And to join the fellowship, because it is not enough to simply declare, according to one's own conscience, that Bergoglio is not the Pope, but unity is strength. So if they go out and then make their own chapels, the people of God are scattered. Instead, these priests who have joined together and are living this path of sanctification, of spreading the truth together, are strong because they are together, we sisters too. We have resisted many attacks, many slanders, because we are united, because we stay together. One heart is a single soul. If, on the other hand, the priests come out, because each priest knows in their conscience what is happening in the church, it is truly an abominable thing. And then, however, they create their own chapels, their own small realities. And so the church is not saved. The church must be saved with sacrifice. It must be saved with prayer. It must be saved with priests who speak the truth. Everyone belongs to the church. As consecrated women, we are called to pray for them. In fact, we pray for our priests, but also for those who feel they must leave. And so far, they haven't done it for personal reasons, but still. Sooner or later, God demands accountability. And priests have this duty in the church, to speak the truth, to shout the truth. And if not doing it, like Father Alessandro does, because it is his charisma, but doing it as the others do, it is not the method that matters, it is the substance. And doing it together, united, something important can be achieved. What does it mean to be consecrated in 2025? Good question. Well, being consecrated in 2025 is remarkably similar to the sacred consecration experienced in earlier times, for it clearly reflects the enduring truth that the bridegroom is always Jesus. The call is unmistakably his, and the service performed is continually and wholeheartedly devoted to him. It is more difficult to enter people's hearts because there is a lot of distrust, and also because the media have done a dishonest job. They have carried out an act of discredit and defamation. This, in turn, has had a measurable effect on those minds that are most vulnerable. And so, making people understand that what they are saying is not true is a long process, because they must still listen to the opposing view. And so the catechesis of the Father, and so the catechesis of the priests attending the path as well. And not everyone is willing to do it, because it is easier to judge rather than verify. Being consecrated in 2025 is a great responsibility that we feel, and it is a grace. It is also a grace, because we see how the world lives without God. We are very happy. Yet the world is unhappy. There is so much sadness around. When we simply go to the supermarket or walk down the street, people look at us, stop us, much like bees drawn to honey. They ask us, and you appear so joyful, so truly beaming, while we frankly do not share, let us say, the same spark. A genuine smile, that is, it's real. We do it because we are happy to serve the Lord, because we have encountered God in our lives. And what we wish for all the people we meet is to live the gospel. It is what changes life. It is doing it in its entirety. Here we've done it. We are happy. If you had to explain to someone who has never heard of him, who is Don Alessandro, how would you describe him? Multifaceted, the Father. So who is Father Alessandro? Father Alessandro is a priest who is dedicating his life to the Roman Catholic Apostolic Church, and in order to remain faithful to the doctrine that has always been and to our Lord Jesus Christ, he is personally paying the price. The Father has also received requests from other religious factions, such as the Orthodox, who asked him why he does not become an Orthodox bishop. Let's say the proposal was still fascinating because he would have become a bishop. Father said no. Praise be Jesus Christ, onward with Mary. If I had to define who Father Alessandro is, Father Alessandro is a priest faithful to the Catholic Church, despite what is said about him. I can say it because I have known him for a long time, by the grace of God, and he has always defended the faith, even going against his own interests. Because anyway, exposing oneself towards this line of truth. Losing the parish not only means losing vital economic guarantees, but it also inevitably leads to profound isolation, ultimately confining you to a small circle of loyal supporters who follow you. But he was the pioneer. Now there is the partnership, so it is not as difficult as it was at the beginning. So Father Alessandro is a priest faithful to the sound Catholic doctrine. And to our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you, dear sister. Hail, O Mary. Hail, Mary, and may God bless you. We bring the joy of the gospel, which does not mean having troubles. In fact, You have heard how many, but we bring the joy that comes from God. And then Sister Arianna, when asked, I asked Minutella, him. The truth was expecting a bit more from me. Anyway, it's fine, I'm content. I was expecting more high-sounding phrases from a bigoted hostage brainwashed by the guru. Instead, she limited herself to saying that he is someone who pays personally, and this is evident to everyone, to defend the Catholic truth, while the cardinals were in St. Peter's Square praying the rosary for the Pope. Demon. Well, tempus omnia meditur, that is, time remedies everything. Let's hope it is so. We thank Sister Arianna, who made herself available. I remind you that tonight at 9 p.m., the catechesis on the 10 Commandments. I warmly greet Brother Celestino. Meanwhile, the seminarians continue with their study and prayer to prepare themselves, and then it will be as God wills. And upon all of you, the holy blessing of the Lord, wishing you a day full of peace and joy with the rosary in hand. Sister Arianna concludes with the greeting that we spread, Hail Mary, and the angelic greeting. And the world is saved. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Praise be Jesus Christ. Forward Mary.
La catechesi sui 10 comandamenti di Fra Celestino. Saluto con affetto nel frattempo i seminaristi che vanno avanti con lo studio e la preghiera per prepararsi, e poi sarà quel che Dio vorrà, e su tutti voi la santa benedizione del Signore, augurandovi una giornata piena di pace e di gioia con la corona del Rosario. Suor Arianna conclude col saluto che noi diffondiamo: Ave Maria, è il saluto angelico e il mondo è salvo. In nomine Patris et Filii e Spiritus Sancti. Sia lodato Gesù Cristo. Avanti con Maria. Grazie.